Hey everyone, welcome to another great interview for the 2023 Business Connection Virtual Summit. Today we are talking with Simon and we are talking all about social media. It is extremely important for business owners to understand, especially in the digital world that we all live in. So without further ado, Simon, please tell us who you are, what you do, and a little introduction into what we're going to be talking about.
So my name is Simon Matthews. I am a marketing strategist. What my company did, my company is Open Door Media Solutions. We help businesses develop a strategy, and then we also help them with the execution of the strategy. So in terms of execution, that could be anything from developing a brand identity to developing logos, websites, and marketing campaigns.
Awesome. And so social media, as we discussed, is extremely important. I think it's, one of the most important things that any business can really tap into nowadays when it comes to marketing. So to kind of get us started, what are social medias that are out there and what is their overall purpose?
So social media, there's of course LinkedIn, there's Facebook, there's Twitter, there's Instagram, and each platform has a different purpose, like you kind of alluded to. For instance, they have a different appeal. And it's actually really good for business owners to understand, why do people consume content on LinkedIn, and what are the different, what are the reasons that people go to LinkedIn, and versus when they switch to Facebook, why are they going to Facebook, and what are their information consumption habits on one platform versus another platform. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think that, when it comes to understanding the different pieces, the different intricacies of the people on those social medias, what are some things that we can look for to kind of identify them over there? What are some things that, so for example, like groups that would be talking about a particular item, that would be one thing to look for in order to understand that our people are on there. What are some things that can help us find our people on the social medias?
So finding people, in terms of special interest groups, you can join, you take, for instance, on Facebook, you can pretty much set up a group for anything. There's a special restaurant group. I'm in Virginia Beach in the Hampton Roads area. So there's a restaurant group, and this is a community that talks about food and restaurant life. And, a lot of times in my experience, if there's a particular area of interest, they sometimes find you. So I don't really think it's that hard to find a group. I think the important thing is, when you do find a group, how big is the group? Is that group your target audience? Because if you find a group that's not really your audience, then why are you there? Then you also want to understand the etiquette of the group. For instance, you may have a group that is dedicated to food and fine dining, but they don't really want people posting about business, so you have to, so basically think about it like you're going into someone's house, and some people, they tell you take your shoes off, and some people don't. So you want to understand the etiquette behind the environment, and even the social media platform as a whole that you're joining.
Absolutely. And I think that that's where a lot of businesses trip up, where they just kind of come on social media and they just start posting everything that they can, or don't really look for their target, or like you said, go into a group or into a setting and just start asking people to buy their stuff from the beginning all the time. And
Right.
understanding what you're talking about, the etiquette, the way that you want to go about putting yourself out on social media, I think is a key point. So going into that, what are some things we need to keep in mind when we're starting to put ourselves out on social media so that we can effectively market ourselves, but also follow, like you said, the etiquette, the things that are out there that businesses are finding that work?
Right. So one thing to consider, one thing to think about is think about the social media platform as a whole. And then in terms of you take, for instance, Twitter. Twitter, uh, the types of conversations that facilitates, there's a lot of charged, heated kind of conversations, right? So whereas you go on something like Facebook, and the types of content that's going to be there are contents about people's the most exciting thing that happens on Facebook is someone's birthday or their anniversary. It's pretty lighthearted content. Okay. LinkedIn, it's about business. So people are in the mood to talk about business. Okay. So you have these different platforms that are catered to a certain type of content and a certain type of mood, in a sense. So does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So, for instance, if you find that, uh, for instance, when I'm marketing for a client who sells directly to consumers, they're B2C. Facebook is really good. Facebook tends to work really well for that. But if I'm working for someone who is selling architectural services, Facebook is not where you're not going to get a lot of serious leads on Facebook if you're selling architectural services. Okay. You might not even, I mean, your best bet is to probably go onto LinkedIn. So the real thing is to understand, when you do look at marketing advice, it really depends on your industry and where your target audience is. Okay. So, okay, I'll stop there, but.
No, you're
Yeah.
good. No, this is what we need to dive into. So I think that another important factor, which we're kind of driving at, is you really need to understand your audience and all the different pieces of them so that you can really know how to interact and how to target them. So when it comes to understanding our audience, especially when it comes to the digital side of things, how we're putting ourselves out on the digital world, what are some things we need to understand about our audience in order to find them and interact with them correctly?
So to find them,
like what do we need to understand? Like what do we need to figure out about our audience in order to be able to find them? Which can double. It's not just digitally, but also in general, we need to understand our audience.
There's a lot of different ways to go about it. Okay. The most effective way is, of course, face to face, right? Is a person to person. Like you see someone at a networking event, and then you have a nice conversation, and you make sure you follow up with them on LinkedIn. Okay. Now, if you are deploying a strategy that's more like a cold calling strategy, where you are just trying to get your services out there to people who've never met you before, it's harder to do that. Okay. Because the exact same thing you would say to someone in person, it bounces right off someone who you haven't met before. Okay. So you have to first set the right expectations for when you're marketing. So I'll give another good example. And this goes back to, it depends on what you're selling. Okay. If I'm selling a product that's a really low cost product, it costs below $50. Okay. It doesn't take a lot of deliberation to make a decision on. Those are easier sales. You can, as long as it's a nice offer and it's and people are somehow emotionally motivated to purchase it, that's a fairly easy kind of sale. You don't need a relationship with that. For instance, I don't need to build a relationship with Chick-fil-A to buy a Chick-fil-A sandwich, right? It's a low cost item. I don't need a relationship to do that. But when you are talking about high ticket services, right? Things that are about maybe $25, even $1,500 and more, those tend to be decisions that your consumer has to do a lot of deliberation on. And for them to just see you online, a lot of times it's not enough, right? They need to you have to figure out a way to build trust. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think that leads into kind of some of the next things I want to talk about, which is how do we start building that trust online and building an audience that's going to start following us and wanting to interact with us over time? How do we do that through social media?
So there's a tool called an avatar or a persona that every business should be aware of. So an avatar or persona is it's a representation of your ideal client. Okay. Now, once you have, now this persona is a fictitious person. This is not a person that really exists, but this persona is, it helps you to understand, okay, my target audience, they're in this industry. They enjoy these types of hobbies, right? They have these sets of interests. They consume media from a certain, handful of media channels. But basically, this persona that you develop, it's like an anchor to make sure that you're not to make sure that your messaging is focused and efficient. Okay, because you're going to start creating content, and you want to create content to the relevant audience. Okay, so the more you know about your audience, and that goes into developing the personas or avatars, then the more you understand what they need. And when you understand what they need, you can produce content that is valuable to them. Okay, and creating valuable content for people, it can build trust. Okay, and so there's some patterns that people follow, like provide like 3 pieces of valuable content, and then on your 4th piece, ask them for something. There's an ask. So it's kind of jab, 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 punch. Okay.
Yeah.
And so these are, as you run your business, you can search the internet for these different frequencies and patterns, but then over time, you should figure out what frequency and pattern really works for you.
Absolutely. And I think that that's one of the key points about social media that people need to understand as well. It is a long-term kind of play where it's building your following over time, building a brand, building a reputation, a presence, if you will, so that people can do a couple different things. They can see your offer and want to buy. They can follow you for a long time, trust you, and then buy. They could also use it as a social proof, if you will, of they know you but know nothing about your company, and then research you and find out all this information. So there's plenty of uses with social media, and I think that with the way the digital world is going, companies need to have that footprint. They need to make sure that they have that presence. So when it comes to curating, or whatever that word is, the
curating,
there we go, the image we want to put on social media and the presence we want to have, what are some things we need to think about when it comes to putting that together? We already discussed what some of the content might be and how we're going to put it out, but now what are some other things we want to keep in mind as we put it out there, maybe as we see even responses? What are some rules that we want to potentially look at in order to keep ourselves relevant?
So again, it always goes back to the industry you're in, the type of product you're selling. And I kind of want to go back a little bit, and I'm gonna answer your question. So if you sell, if you're a bakery and you sell cookies that are like really low cost cookies, you might see results almost instantly. Okay. But if you're in an industry that requires a great deal of trust, then you're gonna need, you're gonna probably have to be creating content for about several months, maybe 3 to 6 months before you see a lot of traction. Okay, but in terms of developing your brand identity, which I think is what you're kind of getting at, right?
Yeah.
Um, depending on your industry, okay? So a couple of things to consider. People, because we have so much, people are inundated with so much content, they're not as, I think they're, in some ways, they're a little bit more forgiving, okay? Because take, for instance, maybe 10 years ago, we would want to put so much production quality into what we're doing, right? Make sure it's polished, have lights and wonderful backgrounds. And we want to put on a whole production. But to be honest, that's not, that might be necessary on the TV where that content is viewed on a big screen. But a lot of social media content is viewed from a handheld device. So all of those details aren't going to be really noticed anyway. Okay. So with that being the case is that your production costs or the production value doesn't have to be as high, okay, in general. Now, if you are a luxury brand, your production value still has to be high. There's really,
Absolutely.
I don't know if there's any getting around that. There's also the authenticity piece. If you come across as too made up, then it might come across as not authentic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you have to find that version of yourself that is you, that you're comfortable with. It's almost like going on a date, right? I mean, there's your target audience, there's your customer, and then there's you. Okay. Your customer is not everyone. They're a specific type of person. Sometimes they're a specific kind of personality. You can get your personas can get down to the point where you're identifying what personality type they are. Okay. And then there's you. Okay. So if I'm going to go out on a date, right, I want to work with someone I'm comfortable with, but I'm also going to dress up nice, and I want to make sure that the messages and the communications that I'm putting out with my body language, with the way I dress, that all of that resonates with my target audience. And that can change from depending on what industry you're in. Okay. You might be in the music industry and they want to see grunge. They might want to see a little bit of they don't want to see the clean shaven look.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's about, what do you think? First, a lot of times it starts off with just an educated guess, what you think your audience will resonate with. And then you try it, and then you see if that actually is the case. And then over time, you change things, and then you start to learn what they really resonate with. Does that make
Absolutely.
sense?
Absolutely. And I think that, another great thing that companies need to understand when it comes to marketing, when it comes to the long-term play, because when we're doing sales, we always think of, okay, how are we getting our sales in different capacities? So marketing is different than a salesperson. A salesperson's looking to get that direct contact, make that direct sale, take that lead to the closing. But marketing is going to be more of getting those leads in. It's going to be getting them to the salespeople. So we need to think in that different mindset, because marketing sometimes takes a lot longer. Email campaigns, social media, even ads. It's going to be a while before sometimes those people reach out. So wrapping our head around it, I think, is also a good separation for a company, especially a brand new one, when they start thinking like, okay, I have sales department, but marketing is different and it's a whole different animal. And I think it's a different way that people think when they do the marketing as well, because you're also nurturing potential leads. So it's good to put our heads around this when it comes to social media, because that's ultimately where that all falls in.
So I'm actually glad you brought this up. So a lot of times, so sales is actually a form of marketing. Okay. So, when I put my company's logo on a billboard, it's this giant billboard that is endorsing Opendoor, right? I mean, it's a form of an endorsement. It's a placement. This particular billboard is saying, look at Opendoor. Well, when I have a salesperson go out and represent me, I have a human being who
Hmm.
is saying nice things about me. Okay, so just like you have a billboard that's saying nice things about you, you can have a human being that's saying nice things
I
about
got
you.
you.
So
Yeah.
they're both forms of marketing.
Yes.
So, but what ends up, a lot of times what ends up happening is you may have some tension between your marketers and your sales team.
Okay.
And they actually need to understand that they work together.
Hmm.
Okay. If you have a sales team who wonderful, passionate people who go out and try to close business for you, their job is so much harder if they don't have marketing collateral, if there's no awareness of your company, right? So for
Hmm.
instance, so the way the relationship really should work is that your marketing team, their job is to set the atmosphere, to build a good reputation for you and your company and have that in the atmosphere. And then your sales team they kind of work within that atmosphere. And when they meet someone face to face, it's not like they're meeting someone for the first time. There's already an awareness of your company.
Yeah.
And that only happens because your marketing team has created this cloud, this atmosphere where people feel like they already are familiar with your company.
Yeah.
So it has to work together. But sometimes they fight because it's a battle over who has the lion's share of the budget.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'll tell you that the sales team are going to be more effective just by nature of um a sale by a human being, is the chances of that closing is much higher than selling something online and there's no person involved.
Hmm.
But you have to have both. Okay, because without the
Absolutely.
marketing team, it makes the sales guys job so much harder,
Yeah.
and then they're hating life, and then they're quitting, and they think that they don't have a valuable product to sell. That's not what it is.
No.
You stole all of marketing's budget
No, I agree with
for
you.
sales.
And that's definitely a good point to clarify more of, how the relationship is and how the two need to work with each other and how they complement each other. So I like that analogy too with the atmosphere and such. So to wrap this into a bow, or however we want to phrase it, when it comes to social media, we talked about how to get our brand out there, how to hit our target audience, how to find our audience, how to pair it with a sales team if we have any. What are some last points that you might want to make when it comes to social media, using it for your company and in your sales process?
I would say there's a lot of I'll first kind of go back. There's a lot of advice that comes across as everybody should do this, but it really depends. It depends on what your business's objectives are at that time. Social media might not be the right move to make at this time, but just a lot of it just depends on your business. Um, a lot of in terms of getting started, what I tend to do if I'm working with a client, I'm gonna want to put some money on paid. I'm gonna make content and I'm gonna want to put some money behind it, okay, and boost it and make sure that my content gets shown to thousands of people. Reason why I'm saying that that's important. There's a lot of advice that just says, hey, just try to generate organic traffic. If you don't have money, then that's fine. All right. If you have no money, then go for it. But if you have cash to try to get that ads in front of people, then you need to spend it. Otherwise, you can put a lot of energy and effort into wonderful content, but it not reach anybody. Okay. Now, over time, your spending should go down because your organic traffic should go up. Okay, but don't get it kind of in reverse. You're
Yeah.
not, Facebook and social media is not going to reward you for not giving them money. They're
Yeah.
gonna, of course, there are bots and there are scammy things, but you just have to. That's just the nature of the beast. But there are some legitimate people who see your ad. The last thing I want to say about it is that your cost on social media is so much more effective. I mean, it's so much, you get so much more exposure on social media than you do on traditional forms of media.
Yeah.
Okay. So you could do the math on that. I think we look at it as cost per mile or
Hmm.
cost per 1,000 impressions, but it's a lot cheaper on social media. So don't let people talk you out of paying money to boost your ads. I mean, you have to, but you do have to get someone who knows how to target properly. Does that make
Absolutely.
sense?
No, definitely. And it's a very elaborate process, and it's intricate, and things
Mhm.
change all the time. So that there's
Yeah.
many reasons, just those are a few of why you would want to have someone help you with it, especially if it's just the first time.
Yeah.
So in light of all of that, Simon, how can people get a hold of you?
So you can visit me, you can visit my website, opendoorms.com. You can email me, smatthews@opendoorms.com. Let's see. I guess you can even call me. Should I give my phone number?
Sure.
Okay, 443-794-4899. Oh, and I
Awesome.
also have a calendar, so you can I can send people a link and then they can just book an appointment with me on my calendar. So
Sounds
that's
good to
pretty
me.
nice.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much, Simon, for helping us dive into marketing and social and how it all kind of plays together. Thank you, everyone, for watching another great interview from the 2023 Business Connection Virtual Summit. I'm Bill Marshall, and we will see you all in the networking event tonight. Bye.